All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Container Gardening Pretty and Productive webinar. I will be admitting people here and there, but I have muted you all. So please keep yourself muted. And then at the end, I'll answer questions. So if you have questions as we're going along here, go ahead and just type them into the chat box and I will address them at the end. Or you can just, of course, hang on to them and then either put them in the chat box and voice them at the end, or I'll just read them off the chat box. So this is a very popular presentation. I've given it here and there and always have, whoops, hang on, apologies. Sometimes when you're trying to do everything, you mess some things up. Okay, so we have some new folks on here. I see there's some folks from out of the area, and I love to do these twice a month webinars. Sometimes they're in the evenings. We tend to do a lot of them in the evenings, but I'm going to be adding some lunch and learns for the next cycle, which will run July through September, I think. And I try to pick all sorts of different topics. Not all of them will be on gardening. We'll be having some other interesting ones. I think coming up in the fall and into the winter, I'm going to actually add a well webinar so we can talk about wells and what that means to homeowners. I know there's some homeowners that have wells, but a little bit of everything, pretty much anything natural resources is on tap. And if you have any subjects that you really are interested in, I am happy to do that and to do that topic for you. So we will go ahead and start. So this is mostly just going to be kind of a show and tell, and I'll add a few anecdotes here and there. But container gardening is, if anything, creative. It's fun, and I do a lot of container gardening around my house. I have a ton of trees around here, and it makes it really difficult for me to have in-ground flowers because of that, or vegetables. I have raised beds in my garden, is vegetable garden as well, but there's no reason why you can't just have fun with it. Sometimes there are reasons why you would want to use a container, and sometimes it's just for the fun of it. Why not, you know? So here you can see there's a variety of different ones. We've got some old jeans that people have kind of put up around a tree, and they've planted flowers in there. That's kind of cute. You've got an old swimming pool. I mean, let's face it, you've probably gone and checked out what pottery costs these days at the big box stores and maybe some garden stores. They're not cheap anymore. A terracotta pot that's a pretty good size, maybe a glazed one, you're looking at 50 bucks, 60 bucks, 70 bucks. Whereas you can get one of these little plastic pools for, I don't know, 20 bucks or less. So that's pretty cheap. And if you're looking for a solution, maybe you just don't have the space because you're in an apartment. Maybe you can't break ground, or maybe the ground's really hard. Maybe you have, I don't know, like a parking lot nearby, and that's all you have, or you have a small concrete slab. So you're looking for alternatives, and that's great. You can grow just about anything in a container, including this little shopping cart here. I mean, how many times have we driven along as we've passed Walmart and seen all the leftover shopping carts that have been left everywhere? So looks like this person decided they were going to get creative and use one of those. Oops. All right. So you can use container gardens for anything. Most of us probably think of them as something that you would grow flowers in. And I have lots of flowers. I have ferns, but that's just the start. I mean, don't just think of it as a place where you're going to grow flowers. You can grow so much more in them. You can mix them up. So you can see here, On the left, we've got some really colorful containers, and we've got a couple of colorful trellises, and they've mixed and matched. They've got tomatoes in there and peppers. They've got flowers as well. They've really packed it all in there. So there's a ton of stuff in these uh, particular planters. I mean, they probably have to water them all the time, but they're really neat and they're like packed in there and cool. So if you don't have a lot of space, don't feel like you can't put flowers and vegetables in the same place at the same time. That's okay. And then you can see over here, we've got, it looks like some tropical hibiscus plants that are growing in planters attached to a privacy fence. So maybe, you really can't dig up your lawn, but you really want some of those woody perennials that, or annuals that you just can't put in the ground. Well, go ahead and do something like this, go vertical. I have another presentation I do on vertical gardening. There's so many options and so many different cool things that you can do now. And this is probably something super easy that you could do with pots that you can find at some of the big box or big lots. I go to big lots a lot, or even just make yourself. So growing vegetables and herbs, sometimes people will think about doing herbs. I know growing up, I've had or I'd seen pots of little herbs that would sit in the kitchen on the windowsill, and a lot of cooks like to do that. You can grow them outside too. I grow them on my deck. I have about an acre yard and my garden's way at the back. And I do grow herbs out there, but you really don't want to walk all the way out there to get the herbs. So I also have some on my deck growing in pots. It's much more convenient. I can just walk right out there and grab them and then come in. So convenience is a must. I mean, not everybody wants to stroll around the yard, especially when it's like 100 degrees in August around here. So grow some vegetables on your deck if you can, or you may not have a whole lot of space. You can also get you see here on the left, you have somebody that's growing, looks like a tomato, could be something else in there. But if you have deer problems, think about how much easier it would be to exclude deer from a little container like this than it would be from your entire garden. So if you're dealing with varmints or deer, nuisance wildlife in general, this could be a very nice solution for you because you can very easily put some type of screening material over those plants so they can't get to them. But you can do trees, you can do shrubs and fruits. We sell occasionally in our extension plant sale, we'll do dwarf blueberries. So these are just, smaller, more compact bushes that do well in a container setting. So if you're in a condo or you just don't have a lot of space, you can put this blueberry, get a couple of the blueberry bushes and put those in containers, and they do just great. A lot of people love these strawberry jars. You the terracotta pots, and they have the little pockets all the way around, and you plant your strawberries in there. Makes them really super easy. You don't have to worry about the little trailers going off and rooting somewhere around on the plant. And you can easily exclude birds from this type of pot as well. Birds are a big problem with predation when you're trying to grow strawberries. And you may have, again, limited space, but want to grow fruit trees. So these are colonnade type varieties that you can see, and they can do quite well in a pot situation. We'll talk more about that later. So if you are unfortunately one of the folks around here that has really poor soil, a lot of new subdivisions, the developers are trying to squeak every last cent out of their profit. And so they actually scrape the topsoil, they mound it up, and then they sell it. And then they'll come back and they'll roll sod down, but it's actually on hard pan clay. So the sod a lot of times doesn't do very well. That's why. But basically pointing out you may not have really good soil underneath because you're lacking the topsoil layer. So when you're planting in a container, that gives you the opportunity to go out and buy whatever soil you want. They make raised bed soils that are perfect for raised beds. They make container soils that have moisture saver in it that is helps so that you don't have to water it quite as often. It just gives you a better start for your plants. And you can get bagged soils, the soilless mixtures that have fertilizer impregnated, so you don't have to worry about it for the first 6 months. And you can put them wherever you want. So you can get really crazy. There are some, not in my neighborhood, but nearby, where there's some very eclectic people. And um, if anybody's familiar, I live actually in Loganville on Highway 81 north of town. There is a storage unit, and the people that owned it have a house that faces 81, and they have so many different eclectic statues and all sorts of things. The funniest thing, though, is they have a bathtub and a skeleton in their front yard, and they dress the skeleton up for the holidays, whatever holiday that is, but they also plant flowers like they're bubbles. So yes, there are people that are very eclectic and will do something like what you see here, which is taking a bathtub and filling it with soil and then planting some uh, petunias. You can do it on balconies. You see that a lot in I've seen it in San Juan in Puerto Rico. I've seen it in houses in New Orleans. I did it myself in earlier years when all I had was a tiny little back deck with a balcony. I got planting boxes and I put my flowers out there. You can put them on patios and in raised beds. So, I mean, a lot of people think, oh, you have to have a really large garden to do tomatoes. No, you don't. They make patio tomatoes. They breed very dwarf varieties like you see here that are no more than maybe 18 inches and will produce a lot of tomatoes so that you can harvest, pretty much every single day. You can buy them at Lowe's now. They're like $20, but you can certainly get the seeds and start your own and have a really nice little garden or a pizza garden. Put some basil in there. No, you can't grow mozzarella in the dirt, but you can go buy that at your deli section, and then you can have a caprese salad. You can do this with sun-loving plants or shade-loving plants. So I mentioned I have a lot of shade in my yard because I have a lot of trees. Well, that means I have a lot of tree roots. So I love hostas and I love a lot of other types of plants, but hostas do tend to prefer very moist environments. Well, when you have dry shade, which is what I have, they don't like that so much. And they get crowded out with the root systems and the trees. So what I've decided is the easiest thing for me to do is I get wide flat pots that are maybe 18 inches deep, and I plant my hostas in those. And then I just set them along the edges of my wooded area, and then sometimes I'll put a nice mulch layer around there, or I might have some other types of plants. But it seems to work well. I have some plants that are very tolerant of dry shade, and then I've got my hostas and my pots. They're happy because they get their own little bit of soil. They don't have to compete with the tree roots, and it looks nice. And they're very happy. And usually, by the time they reach their full size, sometimes they cover the pot entirely, so you can't even tell that they're in a pot. With the sunny spots, a lot of times people think of those as annuals, and you can do color blocking like you see here. You can have a riot of colors. We'll go into the different design styles. I'm not going to go super in depth. There's another presentation for that another day, but let your personality shine. I mean, go check out and see what the stores have, and don't be afraid of tossing together a bunch of different colors. So containers can make gardening easier. The older we get, sometimes we have problems with achy backs. I've got a couple of fake knees. I was really rough on them when I was younger. And so you can buy nice raised beds like these that you see where you don't even have to bend over. It's kind of nice. I mean, who doesn't want to walk out on their deck and pick a couple tomatoes and a pepper and snip off a little bit of basil? I mean, it's very simple. So it can definitely solve problems. So just because you've got some limitations in maybe can't garden like you used to, that doesn't mean that you have to stop. You just change what you're doing. So going on to that thread a little bit further, make it easier to reach. So you can see here just a variety of different ways that you can garden where you don't have to really bend down. So you can see on the left there, this person has put a pulley system in use. And so they can have a higher plant up there, and all they do is just do this to water. So they'll pull one down and water it, and then they'll pull the other one down and water it. But you can use that pulley system and actually, have them really high up. So if you have a big tree and you want to hang maybe some ferns from that tree, you could very easily have a pulley system to let those ferns down so that you can water them regularly. You can see they have some coconut coir baskets that are stacked the next one over to the right. You have some house plants that are hanging on a hook so they can enjoy some of the summer sunshine and the humidity around here. You have like an old ladder, vertical gardening. I mean, that's basically vertical gardening. And then you see down on the bottom, you have some more vertical gardening. So a lot of times you'll tend to see the vertical gardening in more urban areas because you just don't have as much space. But I encourage you, even if you have a good bit of space, consider it. Living walls are beautiful. I mean, who doesn't want something like that? And it can make you feel just surrounded by nature and just kind of ensconced in it. And, if you do it correctly, you can very easily figure out the watering system so that you don't have to worry about going out there and it's all dried out. Your plants are dying. There are ways that you can fix that where you don't have to hand water. But as you can see, she's actually harvesting stuff. So you can put your herbs in there. You can have maybe strawberries growing that way. There's all sorts of good stuff. As I was pointing out, the back and joints. I'm sure there's a lot of us out there that have achy backs after we've been gardening for a bit. Okay, on to plant selection. So, some people think that you just are going to have your annuals and it's just sunny plants or shady plants, but use some perennials. As I mentioned, I have my hostas in containers. So you've got a heuchera here. It looks like they stuck a nandina in there. I can't tell what some of the others are. Maybe there's a blueberry in there. But I mean, sky's the limit. That just means that you don't have to go buy more plants next year when they die over the winter. You just have your plant. And honestly, if you lose one, that's okay. You can go and add in another. I'll even add, you can mix and match annuals and perennials. So you can have a couple different perennials in there to kind of hold the container down. And annuals tend to have a lot more flowering varieties of plants. And so you can get that pop of color that you're looking for by putting in some annuals in with your perennials. So don't feel like you can't mix and match. Definitely do. It ends up being cheaper in the long run. You can change it up every year. So you'll have a couple staples that are in there that kind of, are the background of your container. And then you get some more pops of color. You can try out some of the different sweet potato vines or maybe some wave petunias or something else that's going to trail and give you that really nice pop of color that you're looking for. You can look at changing them out for the seasons. I know we drive past a lot of subdivisions and you see they go in there and they change out the flowers. They'll put in ornamental kales and things like that in the wintertime, pansies. That's like the typical thing that you see. But don't be afraid to do that yourself. So you can put an ornamental kale or cabbage out there, and then looks like there's some asters in the one on the left, and then they've added in some vertical component to it. You can get Harry Lauder's walking stick, which is that corkscrew kind of willow. And that's just a visual interest. There's some red barked dogwoods that you can get. So, and some mums, of course, you get mums all over the place, but don't be afraid to kind of change it up a little bit. So you can definitely have spring or summer and fall planters that can give you some color. And then, of course, your summer planters. So here you can see they've got kind of a shady type, shady sunny, part sun type. They've got a Kimberly fern that they've stuck in there and some begonias. Looks like there might be some creeping Jenny. and maybe some smaller petunias. So, I mean, you can add a lot of different color. And they're really, I mean, yeah, there are rules that you can follow about color, but honestly, if it looks good to your eye, that's all that really matters. If you like the colors and you like looking at it, then do it. It's all in what you want. All right, so this is probably the most popular design for doing some type of a container garden. This would be the thriller, filler, and spiller. So fairly easy to remember. You can see here on the finished version of a thriller, filler, spiller in the full color version. And then over to the left, you have the filler. That's going to be something that's going to be very mounding. So here they've got some petunias. You can do a wave petunia if you want. It's just going to be mounding. It's not growing up. It's not really going to grow down a lot and trail, but it is going to fill that area very nicely. And then you have the spiller. That's going to be something like a sweet potato vine. That's going to be something that's going to trail off the edge of the pot and trail down. So spiller, of course, like a waterfall or something, something that's cascading. They're a nice, I love sweet potato vines, very simple, easy to find. They make purple and that kind of interesting chartreuse color that you see there, that bright green. And then finally the thriller, and that plant is going to add some height to the and drama, if you want to call it that, to the container. Don't feel like you've got to just stick with spiky flowers. You can do spiky elephant ears. There are all sorts of other types of spiky plants that you can stick in their grasses and things like that. Don't worry about whether it's an annual or perennial again. I mean, you can follow this recipe for either annual or perennial or a mixed, but it visually draws your eyes up, over, and then down. So this is going to be your standard recipe. Oops. All right, let's move on to fruits and vegetables. So veggies and herbs. So a lot of what we do sometimes, again, you may not have room for a full in-ground garden. Maybe you only have one little 4x8 bed that you lease at a community garden and you got a bunch of stuff there, but you really wish you had more. Hey, go for it. If you've got a place to hang around where you live, maybe you have a balcony, go ahead, put some more tomato plants in. They're perfect. They actually make systems where you can plant the tomato plant upside down. And so the roots will grow up into the pot, and then the tomato grows down, and you can harvest the tomatoes there. You see, they've got some, it looks like zucchini that they're growing in a pot. And they make more bushing varieties that don't really trail off a lot. So you just need to make sure you follow the rule, just the same as you would in any other garden, and that's that they need full sun. So plants that you're going to grow in the summertime need a higher intensity of sunlight. So make sure they're going to get as close to 8 hours of sunlight as possible. The other possibility is they're mobile. Containers are mobile. So if you didn't want to pick it up and move it, and you can put them on casters and roll them around if you have a concrete area, or you can pick it up and move it. So maybe, you have a really tiny yard and one side gets 4 hours and the other side gets 4 hours, but you really want that tomato plant, you could move it. So it's portable. Veggies and herbs. And yes, that is corn. I don't know if I would try corn in a wash tub, but this person is. Nothing saying that you couldn't try to do that. Corn's wind pollinated, so you could go over there and just shake it really good, and you could probably fertilize all the ears. So not necessarily a bad thing if you had multiple containers of this. But small containers can work for shorter season crops. So you've got spinach over here in one. You know, just make sure that whatever planter you're using is going to be in proportion to the size of the root system and the size of the plant. So maybe you take a ride over to Tractor Supply and take a look at the different waters that they have over there for livestock. Think about maybe that big plastic pool. So if you want corn, you could try it. Go ahead and get yourself a blue plastic pool and add in your soil, and you could try your corn in the blue plastic pool. Your neighbors will probably wonder what in the world you're doing, but then you can share your fresh corn with them and they probably won't question you after that. Fruit, we already talked about strawberries. There's a couple different kinds. So you have ever-bearing strawberries, and those are going to be the ones that just produce all summer long. There's a couple varieties down there that you can try: Fort Laramie, Ozark Beauty, and then there's Day Neutral. That is the best type that you're going to use down here in Georgia. Those tend to produce for about a year. And that's, if you ever go to a U-Pick farm, that's what they use. They're going to use day neutral strawberries. So they're going to produce a bigger berry. They're going to produce all of their crop basically at the same time, and well, over a very short season, I should say. And then they're basically done. And then you would, in most cases with commercial strawberry producers, they're going to go ahead and just kill out that crop and start over from scratch the next year versus trying to nurse it along. We have a lot of disease issues here. It's very hot and humid, and unfortunately, strawberries do get disproportionately hit hard with that. So just kind of keep that in mind. But it's a fun thing to try, and there's a lot of different types of containers that you can use. You can see they've got the same old terracotta one that I mentioned before. That you've got a felt one over here, although you do have to make sure that one gets watered a little bit better. And then there's other larger plastic ones that look a lot like the units that tower garden units that you would use for hydroponics. And you can see here a little bit more about strawberries. So the year one or the day neutral, you're going to remove those runners because that saps the energy from the main plant. You want that to put into fruit production. And with the ever-bearing, you're going to continue to remove runners and then allow all the flowers to reproduce. And again, the nice thing about doing these in a container is you can put some type of a screening material over the container when the berries are there, so you don't have to worry as much about birds. Blueberries. So I've already alluded that some of the particular varieties are very dwarf or very small and suitable for a container. Pink lemonade is one. I particularly love this one, especially if you only have room for a couple, because it has the berries when they are mature are pink. So the benefit of this, and they taste just like a regular blueberry, they have the same consistency and everything. The benefit of this is that birds don't realize that they're ripe. They think that they're not ripe because regular blueberries, if you have others in the neighborhood, are blue, but they're pink before they turn blue. So the birds actually think they're not ripe. So you end up with more. So obviously, if you don't have a lot of room, this might be the variety that you want to look for, pink lemonade. The rest of those are going to be just regular old blue, the blue variety. Some of them are, I think there's Chippewa Top Hat. None of those are rabbit eye blueberries. Rabbit eye typically does the best down here in and around the Atlanta metro area. Some of those are Southern High Bush, I think. And that's got more to do with the area of the country that they do. You can get some Northern High Bush and some Southern High Bush that do okay in this area, but you have to be aware of when they flower. You don't want them to flower too early because they will get nipped by frost. And you also don't want them to need a lot of chill hours, meaning they got to have so many hours of cold temperatures. For something that maybe would do well in Michigan isn't going to do very well here because we don't get enough of that cold weather. So always look into the types of varieties of blueberries. Most of the nurseries around here are going to carry things that are suitable for this particular climate, but always do a little bit of research. We have a lot of good publications that you can look up, and you can always reach out to us. We're here to help you if you need that. The other thing, and we try to educate folks on this, especially around plant sale time, make sure you get two varieties that bloom at the same time. So they're going to be labeled probably as early, mid, late, and late. That's typically how they're going to be labeled. So you always want to get something that overlaps with something else when it's blooming. Don't buy an early and a late. They're not going to bloom at the same time. You need that cross pollination. So always pick two varieties that are going to overlap. Some of those, like pink lemonade will actually is somewhat self-pollinating, but you'll get a much heavier crop if you have at least one other one to cross-pollinate with. Oops, I wasn't done. So here, it's a suggestion for 5-gallon or half whiskey barrel containers for your blueberries. These would probably be better suited if you had them on a back patio versus a balcony. You could probably do pink lemonade on a balcony, but if you're going to have a larger container and allow them to get much larger, then you're not going to move them a whole lot. So you want them to actually be someplace where being stationary is okay. Blueberries, of course, like extra acidic soil. So you can get peat moss, just kind of wet that, mix that in with kind of a nice container soil. And you want that so that that's going to add in that extra acidic portion to that that soilless or soil mixture that you put in there. If you can put the containers on casters and move them into a protected area, that's probably better. And we do still get some cold temperatures around here, but if it's a semi-protected area in your backyard, you're probably okay. Apples. So I've mentioned a couple times the colonnade or spur type. So if you don't have a lot of space, but you really want some of those fruit trees, you could do something like this. So you have a rather large container, and then you have these apple trees that are basically just a central leader. That's it. Everything else has been pruned off except for just the central leader. And I don't personally know anybody who has fruit trees like this, but they do exist. So if you really, really want them and, are just willing to do the pruning necessary and the spray schedule and everything necessary, I say go for it. All right, moving on to containers. So container choices. Here, the sky is the limit, really, honestly. You can get very creative here. So if you go to the thrift store and you're just perusing the aisles and looking to see what's there, what's to stop you from getting some really old, but still usable rain boots and using those to plant your flowers along a privacy fence? This is cute. I might put some, if I had a privacy fence, I don't have a privacy fence, but if I had some, I might hang up some boots like this. This is kind of cute. But don't stop there. I mean, you need to just get crazy. I mean, I know people that like to put plastic tubs in their backyard and have all of their things growing in plastic tubs and lines in their backyard. But I mean, you could put anything back there. Toilets, I've seen that. We all see the memes for those. Bathtubs, you've already seen some pictures of that. But container choices, you do have to follow a few rules. If you're not going for the eclectic look where you have a skeleton in a bathtub and pansies or petunias to kind of look like bubbles, and you really want the more classy look because your HOA might have an issue with you, follow just a few rules. So whatever container you're going to use, you need to make sure there's room for roots, and you need to make sure it's going to hold moisture. So you don't want a ton of plants packed in there with a really big root systems in a small container, because those root systems are going to crowd out very quickly and your pot's going to be dry all the time. You're going to have to water it once or twice a day. Nobody wants to do that. You also want to make sure that the plants that you choose are in scale with the location and with the container. So you see the one on the right that I have, that's got some canna lilies in there. And then it looks like it might be some lantana and some other kind of flower, but the container is not very big. It really isn't. And you have this huge canna that's almost up to the ceiling on that porch, and it's just overpowering the entire pot. Now, if that pot was 3 times that size, it would be more in scale, and you probably would be just fine with having it there. but you just have to make sure that everything that you're using is all in proportion with one another. So going on more types of containers, you've got your terracotta. Uh, Terracotta is great. A lot of times you can find that at garage sales. People will have lots of old terracotta pots. You can get them for super cheap. So if you do that, buy them all up, just save them. They're great. The only downside is that water will collect and in the terracotta in the pottery. And if we have a cold snap, sometimes they'll break apart if you get a freeze thaw cycle, and they'll break apart, and then you might lose your pot. So you have to make that decision. Do you want to continue to use it? You can flip it over, lay it on its side so that water doesn't collect in there if you're not growing anything in it at the time. If you really like the pot. Otherwise, if it's just a garage sale pot, you may not really care. Just use it until it breaks apart, basically. You can see here, these people have taken a bra and they've put some petunias in the bra. um, I got that picture off the internet, and there were a lot of bras with different flowers in them. So it's kind of funny. Your neighbors may not like that, but it is kind of cute. And then you have probably the more classy version of the hanging basket with the coconut coir to hold everything together, and some really pretty little begonias in there. But just keep in mind that whatever you're using, you have to know how long it takes before it dries out. So on that bra, you know, that may dry out pretty quickly. So you may be hosing that thing down pretty regularly. If you've got the one on the right, you might be able to line that with some type of a liner, plastic or something, and that will hold water in it a little longer so that it doesn't dry out as quickly. But just kind of keep that in mind for the practicality. Plastic and glazed. So this particular planter here is going to be pretty expensive. Glazed is very expensive. Glazed terracotta is going to be pretty expensive. So just kind of understand that if you're going to do that, you may end up with the same problem. It's just that it's more expensive when it cracks apart. And, but you can also put it in a more sheltered location, and you can allow it to dry out so that doesn't happen. Plastic it's not permeable. So unless you drill a hole in it, it's not going to allow water through. It does not, or it shouldn't. If it's a thicker kind of plastic, it shouldn't break in cold weather, but it is UV degradable. So if it's in the sunshine, it will eventually break apart because UV radiation is going to break down that plastic. But both of them will hold moisture for longer. So if you're looking for something that you don't have to water as often, these are both good options. So more types of containers, stone and concrete. You can sometimes make your own. I've seen molds for it, and people make their own. They are kind of expensive, but you probably could find them like on Facebook Marketplace or something like that for reasonable pricing. They're not very porous, so you don't have to worry. They're usually very heavy, very thick, and a little bit more resistant to freeze and thaw cycles. But generally, wherever you put it, that's where it's going to be. So you're probably not going to want to move it around unless you really want your back to go out. Wood. So wood raised beds are a good option, but it's going to retain moisture and it might rot. Even cedar, which tends to be resistant to rot, will eventually rot. So just be aware of that and try not to use treated wood. The newer treated wood is not nearly as bad as the old stuff, but you really don't want those chemicals leaching into the soil. So if you're going to do something, I would say just try to get a thicker wood, get cedar or something that's naturally pest repellent and isn't going to degrade as fast. Just see what you can find. They do also make other types of like hardy plank plastic type containers that might be more suitable. So bamboo resin, which is what I was talking about, woven types of plants. I've got a bamboo pot here. It's very light, and I like it. I wish there were more out there. It was actually fairly cheap too. and biodegradable. So if it cracks or something like that, oh well, it's going to throw it. It's going to eventually break down. That's okay. Unlike plastic, which of course hangs around forever and ever. So some of these newer types of containers might be more environmentally friendly. You can also just grow right in the bag. I've done this too. This is the lazy gardeners kind of doing it, way of doing it. But honestly, if you really don't have a lot of space, maybe you have an old ping pong table that you salvaged from the trash in your neighborhood, and you really don't want to do a lot of retrofitting to it. Well, you can throw some bags of soil up there, cut holes in them, and you can grow your stuff in the bags of soil like you see here on the right. It's not the prettiest thing, but it's very functional. You can put your tomato plants in there and they'll be just as happy as anything else. Don't forget to poke some drain holes in there so that the water can drain out down through the bottom. But I mean, even over here in a garden, you can see they've put down wheat straw and they've got some bags of soil and they're growing stuff in there. The beauty of this is that let's say you live in an apartment or a townhouse and you're moving in a year, you don't want to put a lot of work into doing a garden, putting raised beds in because that's a lot of money. So if you know you're going to be gone, just get yourself some bags of soil and cut them open, put your plants in there, and then when you're done, you just flip them over, dump the soil out, boom, call it a day, throw the plastic away, and you're done. So it's very, very easy. Drainage, very important, no matter what container you're using. You want to make sure that it's going to drain freely. You don't want your roots to sit in the water because you'll end up with root rot. We had a lot of rain around here and it kind of goes through cycles. So you might not have rain for a couple weeks and then it rains every day for a week. And you might get 3 inches or 5 inches. Well, you don't want to lose your plants because they're sitting in water. So make sure that you don't cover up the drain holes. If there's an attached saucer to it, maybe take that off so that it drains better. And you can use these cute little thing called pot feet to lift that pot up off of the concrete or your patio, and that'll allow it to drain a little easier. You can make porous pots more functional. So let's say you're at a garage sale and you see some of these really cool birch bark planters. So, I mean, if you get somebody sends you flowers, a lot of times they'll come in these really cute baskets or, containers like these birch bark containers. Well, they are very porous and would break apart very quickly and rot if you just put the soil in there. So you can actually buy these really cool plastic inserts. It may come with a plastic insert, but you can use that or just plastic in general. You can buy, probably 3 or 4 mil plastic, which would be a thicker plastic. And you can put that in there and then put your soil in that. And that will keep the container from rotting. And you can have a really interesting looking container with some flowers that you can put outside. Just keep it covered, in a covered area. Otherwise, it will continue to rot. So making huge pots or heavy pots more functional. So here you see, you may not want to have to put more soil than necessary in there. I don't blame you. I mean, it's expensive when you buy, a 20-pound bag of Miracle-Gro soil, then they're trying to sell it for $18. That's a lot of money. So you might consider putting something in there to fill in the area and then use a plastic insert or another pot that isn't and you can put a drainage hole in the bottom, but you put a smaller pot on top. So you can see they've filled in the area. Looks like they've got like a whiskey planter there, bigger terracotta pot, but they've filled in with something. It looks like they've got a mulch bag with some mulch in there. They've got some recyclables that they've put in there, a couple bricks, and then they're going to put another pot on top of that, and then they'll put the plant in there. And I do that out front, actually. I have a couple of Boston ferns, and the pots they're in are just kind of blah hanging pots, but the pots I have on my porch look much nicer. So I've put a couple bricks in the bottom of those pots, and then I set my Boston ferns on those bricks. And the doubly nice thing is, because there's no hole in the bottom, I actually take some type of I don't know, it's a shoelace. a cotton shoelace that you can take up into the drain holes on the existing pot, run it into the bottom of the other pot with the bricks, and it'll wick up the moisture to keep your plant that you have in that secondary pot wet. So it's a self-watering container if you want to do that. So more container tips. I know you're not asking questions at the moment, but occasionally when I do this one live, I get people that ask, aren't I supposed to put stones or broken up pottery or something in the bottom of those pots before I put the soil in? It's an old wives' tale. No, you're not supposed to do that. Okay. Let me tell you why. And if you're curious, there's a cute little blog that you can you know, use your mobile phone to go and read the extension article on about why you don't do that. But the quick and dirty answer is that there's a it's a turgor pressure, and so when you put your soil on top of, let's say, these terracotta pieces of pottery, so when you water it, it's going to have like a surface tension between the pottery and the soil. And that water is going to stay up in that soil area, and it's actually not going to drain through. Eventually it will, because eventually it will um, uh, as it ages, if you will. The roots will grow in there and they'll grow through that pottery, and it's not going to do any good anyway. But that's the reason why you don't do it, because you're actually going to leave your plants sitting in more water than they would if you just put the soil in the pot to begin with. So you can see if you are concerned that the water is going to run right out. You can see they've got a couple of coffee filters. Those are biodegradable. You can also use a little bit of newspaper to cover that hole. Um, Something that is going to break down relatively quickly, but not something that's going to break down in a couple of days. So that'll hold the soil in there until it kind of compresses and kind of seals the container. It'll still drain, so it's still useful in that capacity, but it's not going to have that surface tension and keep that soil wet all the time. So again, you can use some really nice, pretty containers and make them more functional by fitting another pot in. If you find some at a thrift store or at a garage sale, you can do like what this person did over here on the far left. They took a pot and turned it upside down. You could technically put some river pebbles or something around the bottom, and then set another pot on top of that, and it will be very functional, and you don't have to have that extra soil in there. All right, soil. So this is what a typical soil horizon would look like. So you would have the O horizon up at the top. That's your topsoil. And then your surface, or your A horizon, which is going to be, normally it's going to be between 2 and 10 inches. Now, I will tell you, here in Georgia, we don't have a lot of topsoil. You're very lucky if you do have more than an inch or so. Typically, what will happen is you have more of the A horizon, which is going to be, a little more clay-like, and then you've got subsoil, or the B horizon, and then down into the rocky stuff, C and bedrock. So we don't have really good soil here, topsoil. It's just not. And if you're in a newer subdivision where the developer chose to sell all the topsoil, you may not even have the O horizon, and you may be missing part of the A horizon as well. So it makes more sense for you to just go purchase your soil than it does to try to figure out what you got. So you're going to look for a complete potting mix. There's all sorts of different types. It used to be you'd have a couple different selections. You might have, it says topsoil. It's not topsoil. It's just composted pine bark. But now you have raised bed soil. You've got container soil. You've got potting mix. You've got moisture control potting mix. You've got organic potting mix. You've got stuff that's got slow release fertilizer. I mean, you can get anything and everything, and you can spend anywhere from $8 all the way up to like $30 on a bag of soil. Actually, it's a soilless mix, but you can spend as much money as you want. So there is all sorts of stuff out there. It's also uber confusing if you're not really sure. So let's dive into what that is. So you can make your own if you don't want to go out and you're overly confused with those bags of soil. You can make your own. So a soilless container mix that would be decent is going to be about 1/3, give or take, of each. So equal parts of peat moss, and you can get that. Amazon sells it. I think Walmart sells it. A lot of places will sell it. It's usually in a big block. Kind of have to shake it off, and then you have to wet it. Peat moss or coconut coir. So if you're looking for a very acidic loving plant, the peat moss is going to be your better option. But those are to hold moisture because they puff up as they get moisture in them. They'll soak up that moisture. Then perlite or vermiculite, and those are going to provide the pore space. So those are those little white floaty looking things that you see in those bags of potting soil. And that's going to be a larger particle, so it's going to be interspersed all in through that mix, and it's going to offer a bigger pore space for the ability for that soil to drain. And then topsoil or compost. And so I recommend that you actually have some real life Georgia clay in there. Georgia clay is going to have a very small particle, but it does have minerals that are necessary for the plant. So clay is not bad on its own. It does hold a lot of moisture, but too much of a good thing. And then you end up with a pond lining, which is what they actually use to line ponds. They'll put a lot of clay in there. So too much of a good thing, and you've got a seal. But enough of it, and it will actually add to help hold water. Or compost, I recommend that as well, and that will add in that organic matter, and that's going to hold in nutrients. So your plants their root systems can grow through that. This is much more economical, I guess, than spending $36 for a bag of soil. So here's what compost looks like. You can make your own. In fact, feel free if you want to do that. I make my own. I have several different ways that I do that. I do vermicomposting. So I have my worms and all the good stuff that comes from them. I do regular composting, and then kitchen scraps and things that are greens I'll give to my chickens, and then I get the chicken manure. So I have lots of different ways that I can get compost. But compost is generally pretty easy. If you don't want to jump into the whole specifics of how do I mix the pile and all of that, just throw it all in a big pile, keep it wet, and in about a year and a half, you'll have some compost that you can use. What you can use for mix, you can use peat. You can use coconut coir. That's a good substitute for peat. Again, this is what it looks like if you want to buy it. Potting medium is just a brick or kind of a loose bag, but you can get it pretty economically. Time release coated fertilizers can be your friends. Some of you might be organic, some of you may not care. You can get both organic fertilizers and now that are time release, and you can get just good old regular old fashioned 10-10-10 time release fertilizers like what you see here. Sand. So a better one would be a builder's grade sand because it's going to have a lot of different sizes of sand grains in there. When you look at the playground sands, those tend to be pretty uniform in size, and you don't want uniform in size because sand plus clay equals concrete or cement. So just kind of remember that in the back of your head. So if you have access to builder's grade sand, go with that, not the playground sand. But that'll do in a pinch. Just go lighter on the sand and heavier on the organic matter. And then perlite, vermiculite. This is what it looks like. Perlite, you're probably going to buy it at more of a nursery. You can get it online. That's pretty easy. It's a lighter thing. This is what's going to mix through and give you better porosity or drainage. Things that you can use, but you don't have to use. the water storing crystals. So if you don't want to have to water your containers as often as maybe you travel for work, this is a good option. So as you're mixing your soilless mixture, you can mix in some of these crystals. You can see they're on the left, on the bottom. That's what they look like when they're dry. And then on the top, they expand to like 100 times their size, but they hold that moisture, and then the plant's roots will grow around that and will utilize the moisture in there. Please don't take diapers and put those in there. It's not the same thing, kind of gross. So just stay away from diapers. It's not in this, it's kind of the same stuff, but it's in a different form, and it's not going to work how you think it is if you put it in your baskets. Okay, so soil from the garden, components of mixes. Don't use that because you will be introducing possible disease organisms. So we usually recommend, if you're going to use a container soil, that you replace that every couple of years. You'll see that in a slide a little bit down from here. Don't use the garden soil because it's not sterile. Topsoil alone, don't use that because it doesn't have all the nutrients. As I mentioned, it's a composted pine bark. It doesn't have everything. Your plants are going to turn yellow from lack of nutrients and other colors. Garden soil, don't use that. That's more of a compost to mix into existing mineral soils. Because you need something that's going to be more complete with the fertilizers necessary that are lacking in the raised bed or the containers. They do make a raised bed soil. So there are some soilless mixtures that do have the fertilizers in them. You can use those in your raised beds. So used soil, really you should be changing it out every year, but let's face it, most people aren't going to do that. When you use that, organic matter breaks down a lot. The sun breaks down that, the UV radiation breaks down that organic matter. And if you've got fertilizers or you've been fertilizing, maybe your Miracle-Gro Crazy, the salts will build up. So your plants 2 years from now won't look as good as what they do now. So it's better to every couple of years just dump that out into the wood line, or maybe you do have an in bed garden type situation. Just dump that soil out, start over if you're going to do that. And you could put it in your compost heap if you have that. If it had a disease, like you had a vegetable in there like tomatoes and it got blight, don't do that. But if it was fine and there was nothing wrong with it, you can put that in your compost bin. You can work it into your garden beds or top dress your lawn. Here we get a lot of rain, it beats down, and if you've got any kind of hill, it'll wash that topsoil away. So you can top dress, meaning just take that soil, kind of sprinkle that about your lawn, and that will infiltrate down and give your grass roots something to grow into. Watering. So larger non-porous containers are going to keep that soil moist. Shadier areas, so if you've got a shady perennial type pot, if that soil is shaded by the plant's foliage, if you cover it with mulch, that goes for raised beds too. You can put pine bark mulch or pine straw on there, and that helps keep the soil moisture in. Smaller plants, if you pack the plants in with big root systems, it'll dry out a lot faster. And polymers, but only slightly longer. So the water retaining crystals. When to water? So if the planter is not heavy, you can lift it up. If it's lighter, then it probably needs to be watered. Does the soil feel dry? Stick your finger in there. If you get it up to about 2 inches up and it's still kind of dry, then your plants are probably wilting at that point. Or you could just do like I do my house plants. If they're wilting, they need to be watered. Or if the weather's been hot, dry, and windy, that evaporation rate will go up sharply. So you want to go ahead and probably water. Or you could cheat and get a moisture meter. There's nothing wrong with that. I actually have one. I use that pretty regularly. And it'll just have a little meter. You see one there. It says dry, medium, wet. And it just tells you if your plants need water. No shame in that. If you want to get one of those, perfectly fine. They're pretty inexpensive. Something like what you see there is probably $5. You can usually buy a pack of multiples on Amazon for a reasonable price, and don't feel any shame for using them. Special circumstances. So, you may have been on vacation and come back and your pot is very, very dry and water's running out the sides. Go ahead and soak it. So put it in something like this and soak it. That's okay. Just remember, once it has sucked up all the water, take it out of there. Don't leave it in there, because if you leave it in there, then the roots will not have any oxygen and then they'll start to die. So you need to make sure that it just gets the water it needs. Water reservoir pots are self-watering. As I mentioned, you could do your own with a shoelace and 2 pots, and then some bricks or something else to hold it up. You could do that where you don't have to pay a whole lot of money, or you can actually buy pots that have a platform in there and they are self-watering. So they'll have something to wick that water up from down below and some kind of platform in there. And then some of them even have like a tube off to the side that you can pour water right into. They tend to be more expensive, but again, you don't have to water them near as often. Drip irrigation. This is a lot of different ways. You can get really fancy where you have a system. You can see there that you've got a little line that comes up. You can have a timed system, or you can just be quick and recycling about it. And you can buy some of these little irrigation spikes off Amazon. You can buy like a pack of 12 for $5 and use a 2-liter bottle. Super cheap. Not the prettiest things, but if you're going away for a few days and you're not there to water, they work great. They just use a Coke bottle or something like that. Just, super easy. And there's a lot of great recycling ways that you can use bottles, milk bottles, things like that. I probably could put in here a few more, but I think this is probably suitable. Most people probably would not leave these sitting in their pots long term, but they're a good short term type of solution. Fertilizing. So, especially in a container, that frequent watering is going to wash those nutrients away. So, even if you bought the expensive soil to put in that container that came with fertilizers, that may wash out, especially if we have a really wet summer. So, just realize you're probably going to have to break out the Miracle-Gro or another suitable type of fertilizer so that it does better and will grow and produce fruit or flowers. So nutrients, not diving in really deep, but the whole NPK. So when you see that bottle or bag or container of fertilizer and it has those 3 letters on there, that is your NPK: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Those are the 3 numbers on there, and that's dry weight percentage. Just kind of know, if you want to look at the little letters over here to the left: shoots, roots, and fruits. So nitrogen is for shoots, and that's growth and greening up. Phosphorus is roots, flowering, energy conveyance, sometimes a little bit of fruit, but mostly just the roots and the flowering. And then potassium, so fruits or plant metabolism, crop productivity, and crop quality and size. So they each have, these are the macronutrients, the ones that they need the most of. You can see over on the other side, you've got the primary nutrients, secondary nutrients, and micronutrients. So whatever soil you have, know that your plants need all of these, some in more amounts or some in lesser amounts, so you can make sure that you're getting them what they need, whether it be organic or non-organic. Types, you can use liquid and soluble, where you're going to mix it with water. Tends to be pretty expensive. It comes as a concentrate. Spikes, where you just kind of stick that in there, and as you water it, it gradually dissolves. You might get a granular. Typically pretty easy to find, pretty cheap, and it's usually a timed release, so it'll be good for like 3 months or 6 months or something like that. And then a coated fertilizer, which again, timed release. So these are your general kinds that you're going to find. How much to fertilize? Well, um, you can use a soluble. I mean, you can add it in and water it in. Some people do that. Just use it like every other time you water. Or you can just at the beginning of the season put that out there if you've got a time release and it will take care of itself as you water. Overwintering, bring indoors terracotta plastic. I'm going to kind of speed up a little bit. Resin, small concrete, all the porous ones because they might break apart. So if you care about it, you might want to move it inside or out of the weather so that it doesn't break. Leave outside large wooden planters filled with soil, and large concrete or stone, you might want to actually cover those up. Overwintering perennial plants. So just note that roots don't tend to be winter hardy. So if you have a perennial in there, you might want to move it to a more insulated area. So maybe get some leaves and push those up around the base of the pot, or some people will wrap the pots. Sometimes you move them into the garage. I've done that. If you have blueberries, trees, shrubs, that kind of thing. And here's some other ways that you can go about that. Sink the pots into the ground and then mulch straw around them. You can put them in the garage in a box with some type of insulating material. Your garage tends to be a warmer temperature, so it should be okay. And then outside, you can actually put a temporary compost heap. That's what it looks like around it with leaves. So those are some options. And that is it. So I typically record these, and you can find those at the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel, which is on the lower right. And if you're interested in other classes, that would be the QR code on the left. That takes you to our extension webpage, and it'll list all the upcoming webinars that I'll have and the topics, and you can register there. Or I believe they also show up in the market bulletin and on the main extension website in their calendar. So we're trying to get it out also in clips, so everybody knows about it, and you can check it out. All right, so I'm gonna come back here and see what everybody has to say. All right, so any suggestions on how to repel squirrels and chipmunks from digging through and chowing down on plants and containers? Yeah, squirrels are a problem. You can try using hardware cloth or chicken wire. So you put the plants in, works better with bulbs specifically. And then the bulbs will actually grow up through the chicken wire, and that helps keep the root systems from chipmunks from getting in there and chowing down on those. As for what to do after, if you have actual plants and chipmunks, that's a tough one. Some people would just say get a cat, and the cats obviously would take care of the chipmunks and things like that. Snakes, you can try attracting snakes to eat the chipmunks and keep the rodent population down. It's really tough though. You can try, if you've already allowed the elephant ears to grow up, you can try taking some chicken wire and then forming it around the elephant ears after they actually emerge to help protect the bulb of the plant. And they may come and be able to chew on the leaves, but they wouldn't be able to get to the bulb. It's hard because the squirrels will get in there and dig and cause damage too. So there's not a really good option for either of those. Sometimes people will get those, I call them the car sale men. People with chickens will use them. It's got the fan and the dancing guy. Sometimes people will put those out, or motion activated sprinklers. That's another option that works really well for a lot of wildlife: deer, coyotes, cats, dogs, people. And it sometimes will work for rodents, but not as much. But you could try it. A little off topic, but are you saying with strawberries better to cut off the runners than putting up a trellis? So you're not a production farmer for strawberries. Production farmers are going to cut those off. They don't want them because they want the main plant to have the energy and produce all the berries. If you're just a hobby gardener, that's fine. You can allow the runners to root and then produce. You're going to have smaller berries, but that's fine. That's part of the fun of gardening is just seeing how the plant grows and experiencing that. So no, I wouldn't cut them off. Just have fun with it, basically. Kind of, see how many pounds you get out of the berries. Eventually, the parent plant will produce less as its energy is put into the different runners. So you'll just kind of see that, and you may decide to pull up the old plants and move the new ones and spread them around a little bit. You'll just have to kind of play around with that. Dumb question. There's never a dumb question. Can you use regular water beads that you buy at the craft store for water retention? That's a very good question. And those tend to be a smoother. Um, they are roughly the same type of polymer, but yes, you probably could. I would be more concerned that they're not going to degrade like the polymers that are made for moisture retention in soils because they do degrade over time. And it usually takes them a couple of years to fully degrade. But those water beads, I'm not sure if those will degrade the same way. I might be concerned that wildlife or children might get a hold of those because usually they're in pretty colors like blues and greens and reds. Um, so yes, you probably could. Is it going to hurt if you put a few in the pot that you've got something growing? No, I don't think so. Just make sure that they're kind of well covered and down there around by the root system. Cindy has shared the classes. Thank you, Cindy. And it's also up here too with the QR code. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, that's all the questions I see. Does anybody have any other questions? It can be anything to do with this. It can be questions about anything else. I'm happy to answer whatever. Okay. That's my cat.
Yes,
Sorry.
hello. Inside this is Jay. Inside the planter pots on your patio,
Uh-huh.
it's during the season, like, the wind blows and weed seeds and different things blows into your planter pot.
Mhm.
How do you prevent so much weeds from taking up the space? I mean, without having to weed all the time, it's taking up the space around your flowers or whatever else you're growing. Can you put down I think it's pine mulch or
Mhm.
pine
Oh yeah,
something
definitely. I
all
recommend
around
that
it?
you put down some kind of mulch. Uh,
Mulch.
th-
Okay.
the hotter it gets, the
Mhm.
evaporation rate goes up pretty steeply. And so when we get
Okay.
into the July, August, September, where it could be 100 degrees outside, and we may go through a 2 or 3 week period with no rain, your evaporation rate is going to be really high. So any kind of mulch you can use, pine bark mulch, you can use pine straw, you can use cypress mulch. I wouldn't use a rubber mulch.
Okay.
That's not something you really
Yeah.
want next to. That's better for playgrounds, I think.
Okay.
You can use leaves. Anything
Okay.
that's going to put a layer between the soil and the air is going to help keep that moisture in your soil. So yeah,
Okay.
that's a good thing to use.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Unsure if I can ask you this question, but I have seen in YouTube that they were getting roots out of leaves like a hibiscus or some other. I tried, but I did not get them. So, have you ever tried?
So are you talking about how to root on a woody stem to get
No.
another plant?
No, like
No.
for example, hibiscus plant.
Uh-huh.
If you have plant, rather asking you a stem or something, I can ask you to give me a few leaves so that I can get roots from the
Hmm.
leaves so
Yeah,
that
you're
I
trying to
can grow them.
propagate them.
Yeah, which I did, but I did not get them like the YouTube is showing.
YouTube is great for trying to educate you on techniques, but sometimes they don't talk about the success rate of of what they're doing. So for instance, you can try propagating from a leaf, but you may only get 20% propagation rate, meaning the other 80% of your leaves died, and only two out of 10 leaves actually were able to set roots. So, it looks really good on camera, but in real life, it may not be as good. So, I actually have a propagation uh, presentation that'll be coming up this fall, and it'll talk about all the different techniques that you can use to try to root in different ways. But different plants are going to root better with different ways. Shirley mentions using rooting hormone. I don't know if they said to use that when you were doing the leaves. I've also tried to do propagation with leaves on hydrangeas, and I've had less success with that. What I have had success with is you can actually buy these little round plastic globes I just get them off Amazon. You can buy a 6-pack for, $8, but they snap together. And so hydrangeas will typically form what we call adventitious roots. So what you do is you find a junction in where two branches are branching off, and you get, some type of wet or moist potting soil, and you can use peat moss works also, and you can put that in there and then snap that around the branch on that hydrangea and just leave it there. And what'll happen is that plant will then grow those adventitious roots into that area of that globe. And you can look, usually they have a clear area on one side and then the other will be dark. You can look, and when you start seeing the little rootlets in there, all you have to do is take a pruner, a hand pruner, prune beneath that, and then put it in a pot. And I almost always have better success with that than I do with trying to use leaves to propagate. Because sometimes it's hit or miss, and that's using rooting hormone. Sometimes I just have no luck with that at all. So I've just started doing it the other way. The easy way, too, if you don't want to buy those, just take one of the branches and lay it down on the ground and put a brick on there, and it'll actually start to root into the ground. And then you can come back and tug on it a little bit, just check it every now and again. And when it won't lift up from the ground anymore, it started to send roots in there. You can clip it on the other side, use a shovel or a hand trowel to dig up that little section, and then put it in a pot and allow it to grow from there. So sometimes there are more efficient ways and that have better success at propagating.
Got you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other questions?
Well, while I'm doing, I had a lot of questions, but it's hard to cover here. So, yeah, of course, like coconut mulch and all those, especially for aloe vera, growing aloe vera from the seeds. That one I have seen on YouTube as well, and I ordered the aloe vera seeds online, and I tried 2 times in 2 different weather conditions, but I did not get. So I don't know how that happens to some other people that shows in the YouTube, and I did even try every garden place like Home Depot. I was asking them, who are your where do you get all the plants from? And I did go everywhere to find out that, but no one did answer that question.
Yeah. So when you buy seeds, you can get seeds off eBay, you can get seeds off of Etsy, you can get seeds off of Amazon, you can get seeds from your friend, you can get seeds from your grandma. We don't know the germination rate of those seeds. We don't know the viability of those seeds. When you buy from a known company, they do all that for you. So they have people that they pay to test the germination rate of these seeds. They have a quality control division that knows when they send those seeds out, their germination rate is 80% or whatever it needs to be. But when you buy from a private seller or somebody gives you seeds, we don't always know that. So those seeds that you got may not have been viable for whatever reason. So I would say buy from somebody that has a guarantee so that if you don't get any that germinate, you can always get your money back. Another thing that you can try, and Shirley also mentioned that, is you can try using a mini greenhouse. Super cheap. It's a gallon Ziploc baggie. So if you have a small plastic pot that you're trying to germinate your seed in, you make sure that soil is nice and moist, and then you put the whole thing in a Ziploc baggie, seal it, blow it up a little bit, seal it, and then that becomes a mini greenhouse. And what that does is that helps keep that soil continually moist. You put it in a nice indirect windowsill where you don't have sun directly shining onto it, and it acts just like a mini greenhouse. And so it's better than just watering it and leaving it sitting on a windowsill, because then the humidity in a house tends to be a lot lower than it would be in a greenhouse or in outside in the summertime. So you're artificially increasing the humidity, which then can help with the germination rate. So you could try that too. I would say don't give up. See if you can look at the reviews. If you can find a seller that has a lot of people that are happy about the quality of the seed, maybe purchase from them, and then just try some different techniques. So some people will use salad containers, like lettuce containers, the half shells, and that becomes a mini greenhouse. Sometimes you can cut a Coke bottle in half, and then you put some soil in there and then put the top back on, and that can act like a greenhouse. Or the gallon bag, you can try that. They're all very cheap and easy ways to do it, and helps with success. I've got one. I don't know if you can see it. I've got one here. So this is a springery fern. I got some seed. You can see that here. And it was a hard little seed, and it did not want to sprout. So I just took it and I put the whole thing in a bag, and I guess, yeah, you can see it.
Yes,
Here it
yes.
is. I also have a little avocado tree. Well, I have an avocado,
How
and
did you get that? I did try several times whenever I eat avocado, but I never got one. But my sister told me that she got.
yes. So you probably can't see it, but they're just in a Ziploc bag with some water. And I got I'll probably transfer them to a pot now, because I've actually got roots that are coming out. You have to get them past the stage where the seed will crack and then they'll send roots out. And that's the tough part, because they dry out really quickly. So now that this is a good way to get them to germinate. And then once you actually have a root that's projecting out of the seed, you can put it in a pot, and then put it back into a bag like that, and get that root system established. And then once that root system is established, you can take it out of there and put it in a regular pot. But that helps keep it moist all the time, and it's a very cheap way of doing it.
How long it took you, the avocado, to get the roots?
Week and a half, not very long.
Oh, not even 2 weeks.
No.
Okay, okay. Yeah, the um moisturizer, giving moisturizer in the Ziploc cover. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I did that one with the Bounty paper towel. Once I get the roots to my just I was giving a little bit water on the Bounty, and I was inserting some seeds in there, and I was keeping them in the Ziploc cover. And after a week or 10 days, I was getting roots, and then I was transferring them to the container. But like I said, the aloe vera seeds and some other seeds, most of the seeds that I bought online, sometimes you do get surprised until you get the germination, and you think you bought the jasmine
Mm-hmm.
seeds, but you will see the 4 o'clock ones.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
wow.
You never know what you're getting.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anybody else? Tim says Nebraska Extension publishes germination rates of seeds. I usually recommend folks do your own little test. So you can take 10 seeds of whatever you have, of the batch you have, and then you can take the wet paper towel in a baggie and put it in a warm area. And after a week, count how many have germinated, and that's your germination rate. So it might be 40%. If that's the case, then you have a pretty poor germination rate, or maybe 80%, but that lets you know. So you may not have viable seeds. Maybe you do. Maybe, especially if you have older seed that's been around for a while, it's a good way to check. So if you know you have a germination rate of 40%, then you're probably going to use more seed than you would normally, to get what you want eventually. But anyway, if that's all everybody has, if there's no other questions, if you have more questions, you can reach out to me via the email address that you see there. If you want to attend more of these, you can sign up for the other classes here. Again, we always try to get those out every place. If you want to go back and look at anything, then this will get posted at the YouTube channel that you see, the Metro Master Gardener YouTube channel, which you see the QR code will take you there below. So thank you all for coming. I'm going to stop sharing. And I hope you all have a good evening. And we'll see you next time.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.